Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's instalment of the Collingwood BigFooty Podcast. I am the Mighty T, and joining me tonight, we have a motley assortment of men. We have an international cast, but we'll start a bit more locally with Cory, who is, I believe, a first-time comer to the podcast. Cory, how you doing tonight, mate?
Pretty good, mate. Let's get this show on the road.
Get this show on the road. So now we're crossing over to England. Coming in live, we have Will. Will, can you hear me?
Yeah, mate. How you going?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. How'd you find the game on the weekend?
Very good. It was very good again to get a win against the enemy. I think we played very well. Played a full 4 quarters, even though the first quarter was a bit hit and miss. But we played very well. I was very happy to watch it.
No, fantastic. And we're also joined by another special guest with a bit of an Irish connotation who got a chance to see, well, actually, there was at least one Irishman playing on a Friday night, wasn't there, Colin?
There was, yeah. Unfortunately, not on our side, but Zach Toohey was playing for Carlton, and thankfully, I suppose he ended up on the losing side the second time against the Pies this year. Just a great win Friday night. Great to see a little bit of I suppose a bite back from some of the bigger names. Great to see Swanee getting the 41 touches and Pendle's Cloak kicking the 5 and Reid obviously going forward kicking 4. So yeah, like Will said there, yeah, great win.
I guess it seemed like a little bit of almost retribution. It was almost vindicating Buckley a little bit. How did you see it, Cory?
It was a good win. Always good to beat Carlton in any circumstances. Obviously, beating them the first time this year was great, but second time's always better. And I guess coming from behind after being down by, I think it was 30 or something points, and then just belting them by, I think it was 40 in the end, was great to get one on the old pensioner.
Absolutely. It felt fantastic. And it's always good looking at Carlton supporters and watching them scramble for excuses as to why they lost, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, so this week we are joined by our international esteemed panel because we are in the midst of multicultural round in the AFL, a round that celebrates players from all different walks of life, all different nationalities and backgrounds that have come together to play our great game. And I guess I want to start, obviously, by talking about the topic that's a little bit closer to us at Collingwood. We've had a fair few Irish boys run through the club in our time. Colin, what's your impression of Collingwood and their Irish recruitment process, and how do you think it's gone so far?
Yeah, well, obviously, as everyone knows, we've got 2 of the boys on our list at the moment, Marty Clark and Caelan Mooney, who are both actually from the same part of Ireland, County Down, a lovely part of the world. But yeah, I think as Marty probably attested to in his first incarnation at the club, I think it was very much a personalised recruitment process that I think it was Derek Hine and his recruitment team went through to recruit him initially. So I feel that the way we've gone about it as a club has worked very well, and I think we've gotten a very serviceable player in Marty Clark and a potential star, in my opinion, in Caelan Mooney.
Because he's really got that athletic ability, he's got that tenacity about him. He really does just has a natural competitiveness that really shines through. Well, question more directed to you, because obviously, our multicultural influence, we see it in this country, but, so many players and so many different backgrounds immigrate into Australia. How do you see what's the perception of the AFL like over in Europe and in England, especially?
Well, I talk about AFL a lot at work, especially. And surprisingly, actually, a lot of people at work know what AFL is. They sort of describe it as a game with no rules. They don't seem to understand why they're picking it up with their hands, then handballing it, and why they're just running around everywhere. They don't understand the things that we do, like the marking and how heavy we tackle people or bump them or anything. but they say it's entertaining nonetheless. When I was staying over here, I did play for a bit, and a lot of people in the club that I played for and opposing clubs that I versed were actually Englishmen. There was a lot of English players, with a small amount of Australians, but a lot of English people. They seemed to really love it, just really get into it. And it was actually really good to see.
Who do you think, Cory, in your personal opinion, who do you think some of our better multicultural players have been, our better non-Australian background players have been over the years?
I guess with the most recent one, I guess Specious Argument is one. I wasn't around to really watch Peter Dacos, but I know how great he was for the club and multicultural person in our history. We have someone like Specious Argument, and even now we have Harry. Coming from Brazil, and we've heard all his stories and what he's gone through to come to AFL. And I guess it gives diversity to the club instead of just having every player on the list Aussie brogans. We have a lot of diversity in Melbourne, especially one of the multicultural states.
Now, Cory, you touched on our next topic of conversation, which is Harry O'Brien. His face has been plastered all over the media this week. What do we make of this situation, Cory?
It's a bit of a whirlwind of events. We come from learning that I first learned that Harry was out, ankle injury. Then I thought someone came with a rumour that, he had a rift with Buckley. And then we thought, as we had that through the majority of last year with Swan and guys like Thomas and Didak and that, we thought, it could get any worse. And then we find out what truly happened with the nickname and how Harry got offended. He left, and then I just wanted it to be resolved because I didn't want to have, players against Buckley. We want a team that's going forward. We don't want any problems within the club.
It is an exceptionally convoluted issue, and I think it's something that, he obviously has come from a different background, a different environment. We're talking about multicultural around. He's obviously come from, Brazil, and it's a different part of the world, and he's had to grow up with different pressures and different things affecting him in his life. And coming across to a country like Australia, it must be a bit of a culture shock. I mean, Colm, you're currently living stateside. I mean, is it tough for people immigrating to the country to kind of settle in and adjust to life here?
I would say in certain respects it is. For me personally, obviously coming from Ireland, there is a significant Irish presence in Melbourne. From my perspective, I suppose, given that I was already a huge footy fan before I came over here, that helped me most definitely kind of integrate into, I suppose, Aussie conversations, Aussie way of life. It's a way of life, I suppose, in Melbourne. So, just going back to probably the original point about Harry, I think, I think it's a difficult one to kind of get your head around, the various stories that he has come out and said, or the various issues that he said he had. I mean, for people probably from a I suppose, Brazilian background, or a background that wouldn't necessarily correlate directly with the experiences that he had, it's very difficult to kind of understand what he's gone through. And like Cory said, I just hope that he gets through it and that the club support him. And it is a pity that it's arisen because, as far as I could see, with his move up onto the wing, he's been having probably the best year of his career as far as I can
Absolutely.
make out. So I'd echo Cory in saying that fingers crossed we get through it as a club, and that Harry comes out the other side and continues to play great footy,
Oh, here. And, look, obviously these issues must be magnified when you're in an elite sporting environment. The media's in your face all the time, and it obviously can't help. And, I think I speak for every Collingwood supporter when we hope the club gets behind him and we see Harry out there doing what he does best, and that's playing playing some good football. Which gets me onto the topic of this weekend. We do have a game this Friday night, which I honestly think couldn't have come at a better time to get the focus back where it belongs, on AFL as opposed to any infighting or negativity within the club. Coming off a very good win, Will, how do you think we'll fare against Adelaide this week? This is their make or break game.
Yeah, it's at the G, isn't it?
It is at the G.
Oh,
are you going to make it down for the game?
I wish, mate. I wish. For the game, Adelaide's been a very inconsistent side. They're not the same side as last year because they did all right last year, I think.
Yeah, they finished in the top four. Yeah.
Yeah, and they did very well this season. Though they're hopeless. I've got to say they're not the same side, and they're not playing good football. Collingwood, after a massive win against Carlton and some changes that had to be made, especially with Ben Reid moving forward, I think we can easily account for them. We just need to be consistent across 4 quarters. That's been our problem all year. I mean, last game, we were consistent for the 4 quarters. I don't think I've seen it this year, but to actually come back against being down against the odds and actually win a game, I don't think we've done that this year. Not that I can remember anyway. We did it, and that'll give our boys a lot of hope. And I think we'll easily account for them next week.
I think the point that you touched on, one point you touched on, is really pertinent there, Will, and that's our consistency. And consistency is something that Adelaide have lacked as well. But considering they're only a game outside the 8, Cory, do you think that they're any threat to come across here and maybe give us a bit of a shake?
I guess with. They got nothing to play for, really. They're not going to make finals, I'm assuming, unless something radical happens.
Unless they win this week.
But I guess they might come to play and, put everything out and try to... But I guess I don't think they'd be really close to getting to us, in my opinion. If we play really good football, if the Collingwood... that beat Carlton and Geelong come again this week. Don't think they'll get close, but if the Collingwood that play Port Adelaide comes to play, then it'll probably be closer than everyone thinks, and might struggle to win it.
Well, you make a very good point, and I think that while wins gloss over a few of the deficiencies, I think that Port Adelaide loss is still fresh in our minds. Colin, do you think we'll make any big name changes this week?
I would hope so, to be honest. I think Dane Beams obviously came through the VFL last weekend, played very well by all accounts. And I think, given our inconsistencies that the boys touched on there, of kind of following up a good win with a bad loss, I think maybe drafting Beams back in might kind of give a bit more impetus to it again, to maybe encourage the boys to follow it up. I wouldn't be so confident or as confident as the boys about our chances at the weekend. I think Adelaide are a dangerous side. They haven't been playing well, but I think they're at the kind of stage of having nothing to lose, and there's nothing better to fire up, I suppose, an underperforming side than coming up to Melbourne to take on the Pies in the MCG on a Friday night in a blockbuster game, So, I mean, they're a dangerous side because they have, probably the most exciting player, I suppose, in many ways in the league in Dangerfield. And they have a couple of other very strong midfielders. So, they're underperforming, but I'd be wary enough, which I would probably bring me to bringing back in Beams, be it as a sub or maybe play 3 quarters or whatever way Bucks kind of wants to play it,
Any chance you think of young Mooney getting a run this week? Just to fly the Irish flag.
I'd love to see it, but unfortunately, I don't think he will. I think, obviously he has to get re-upgraded to the senior list. I think we have around 11 upgrade that we can still use, but I don't think we'll see him. But I think again, like Beams, he would add a bit of spark to the thing. I think 2 weeks ago in the VFL, he had something like 12 tackles. He's kicking goals again after kind of a little bit of a lull in the VFL kind of mid-season. So I don't think we'd have anything to fear from throwing him in. I think he's able to make the step up now. It's just kind of a case of whether Bucks is willing to give him the chance kind of this season, or whether he's going to have to wait until 2014 to get a run out,
Got a couple of milestones coming up this week. Our premiership heroes celebrating their anniversaries in games respectively. We've got Luke Ball playing his 200th game and Steele Sidebottom playing his 100th game. Now, gentlemen, how do you think these guys have performed for us thus far in their careers? Luke Ball came in 2010 and helped us win a premiership, and Sidebottom came in, I think, a year or so before him and was part of that same team. So is it onwards and upwards for both? What do you think, Cory?
I think it's onwards. I guess onwards more for Sidebottom. I think with Ball, he's probably has 1 or 2 more years in him. You can tell with his injury, his body's getting older. He's going to, slow down a bit. But these two have been important for our side. They've been in the best 22 for the past 3 seasons.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Will, what's your favourite Steele Sidebottom moment? Is it the grand final? That's got to be. It's got to be up there, but
it's got to be up there. I think one of his performances that I was really happy with was when he kicked 5 goals against
North Melbourne.
Yeah, North Melbourne. When he kicked 5 against them, that was great to see. And didn't he? Oh no, he didn't. I think he might have kicked the last goal in the preliminary final for Collingwood in 2010.
2000. I believe. If you're thinking last goal, you might be thinking 2011 and Luke Ball. But you're on point.
No, 2010 preliminary final against Geelong. I believe he might have kicked the last one.
I remember a little handball over the top from Beams, and he walked in and slotted one.
Oh, okay.
Unless my memory is failing me. But
disregard that one then. Luke Ball then. Yeah, that was a great moment. But Sidebottom's performances in the grand final replay, they were great. It was great to see.
Yeah, he's a magnificent young player. And Colm, what was Ross Lyon thinking, giving us Luke Ball for free?
God, I think even if you asked Ross Lyon that now, he would probably deny all knowledge of the trade. But yeah, I couldn't understand it at the time, to be honest, and I still struggle to fathom how. At that stage, I probably wasn't as aware of Luke Ball, the person. I knew Luke Ball, the player, and the fact that he came through in the famous 2001 draft with, I think, Hodge and Judd, I think, were the 1, 2, and 3 in the draft. And he was always a quality player and a quality leader. But I think even since he's joined Collingwood, I think I've learned to appreciate, I suppose, Luke Ball, the person, and the work that he does kind of off the field with the Players Association. And obviously, as a spokesperson for our club, I don't think there's anybody better. But between himself and Pendles and Maxi, I think we've got a great kind of leadership core there. And yeah, he's just a fantastic player and a fantastic person. And to come back from an injury and just kind of slot back in there, almost as if he's never been away. And I think as we go towards finals, which he'll hopefully play, I think he's only going to improve. And once he gets a few games into his legs, I think he could be a really big player for us come the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, they're both magnificent players. Both been great assets to the club, and I hope they play 100 games more each. I know it's an ask for Luke Ball, but no, we'll get him there. All right, we've reached that point in the week where we're going to go through our quick questions. Myself and Cory are going to be blasting our international guests with the hard-hitting questions. So are we all ready to go, boys?
Yep.
All right, Colm, this one is for you. How happy were you to end Carlton's season this week?
I think every Collingwood fan will have the same answer to this one, and that would be very. Yeah, I mean, it was a great win for us, first and foremost, but the collateral damage of knocking the Blues further down the table and further away from finals contention is always a very nice feeling, it has to be said, yeah.
I couldn't agree more. All right, Colm, do you think we need another ruckman on our list?
At this moment in time, if you ask me right now, with Hudson playing well enough, with Witts having come off his best game of his career so far, Jolly still to come back, and Brodie Grundy in the VFL team really looking like he could be a real player, I would probably say no. But it really just does depend at the end of the season on Jolly and Hudson and their intentions for 2014. I mean, Darren Jolly, I can't imagine has too many years left in him. One, possibly maybe two. Hudson has been in and out of retirement so many times now. I don't know whether he knows what he's doing half the time. But yeah, I mean, I think we'll see probably one of the two older boys retiring. So I wouldn't be against bringing in an experienced ruckman, as long as it doesn't impede the natural progress, I suppose, of Witts and Grundy. If they're ready, let's throw them in, you know?
Absolutely.
All right, so next one goes to Will, and Will Reid play permanent forward again. Oh, play.
Will he play permanent forward? I don't think he'll play permanent forward, but I think stints in the forward line will do him good. I mean, obviously, when he was drafted as a forward. He was useless as a forward when he first started, and then he made his niche in the back line. However, I think because he's a big body, he makes good decisions, he's fast, and he knows how defenders think. I think if we're struggling and Cloak's getting triple teamed, bring him into the forward line, make a little bit of a change. It worked against Carlton, and I'm sure it can work against other teams. I'd much rather see him forward than Lynch.
All right, this one again is for you, Colin, and it's one close to your heart. Will Callum Mooney make it as a footballer?
Yes, would be my short answer. Like I referred to earlier in the piece, I think some of the intricacies, I suppose, of AFL and Aussie rules football he still has to learn. But yeah, all the raw tools are there. I mean, he's kicking goals in the VFL, he's laying tackles. I think he was probably slightly unfairly given a quarter and a little bit against Fremantle earlier on in the season. Kicked a goal. I think he got maybe 8 or 9 touches in a quarter and a bit, and wasn't really seen again after that, which was slightly surprising, I suppose. But yeah, I really don't see any reason why he won't make it. Obviously, his pace is a huge asset to any side. And given the development of some of the other Irish players, like you referred to, Pierce Hanley and Zach Toohey, I mean, it took Hanley the best part of 5 years to really establish himself in the Brisbane Lions side, and now he's pretty much playing at an All-Australian level, you know. So I'd say Quaylen's in his second year now. I mean, if you give him 3 years to learn the game, I think he'll really, really have a massive impact.
I swear, Mighty T has stitched me up with this question, and he knows how much I love Quinn Lynch. And I know how much I appreciate the big guy. But, Will, do you think Lynch will come back into this Collingwood side?
If he can perform like he did against, I believe it was against Carlton round 3.
Yep.
He played a very good match that day. If he can perform like that, yeah. If he's performing like he is recently, no. I think maybe, I don't know if it'll be a popular opinion, but if Ben Reid's moved forward, maybe move the cue stick back into the back line, maybe. The team won't work with Hudson, Lynch and Witts. I don't know, maybe. because maybe for the finals, bring him back due to his experience. But I don't know. I really can't see him coming back because his performances as of late haven't been too great.
I'm going to throw in another question to Will. Do you think we can challenge for the premiership this season?
Yes, provided we can get our injured players back. I mean, how many games we got left now?
I think it's about 8 or 9 left.
8 or 9 left. Yes, we can challenge for a premiership, but everything needs to go right.
Which actually leads me to my next question for you, Colm. Which of our debutants do you think will play finals this year?
Wow. Well, I think all of the young boys that have come in this season have looked very good and have fitted in quite well. I mean, I'm thinking kind of maybe not necessarily debutants, but maybe the younger boys that have established themselves as key members of the side. I think Seedsman, as Cory was discussing earlier, has had a few excellent games. I mean, he was our one shining light, I suppose, in the loss against Port. I think Seedsman most definitely will be a critical component of our side come finals. Other than that, then it's kind of hard to know. Kennedy has looked good, but has kind of maybe flitted in and out a little bit. Maybe will be pushed out by the likes of Beams coming back in. I think Jamie Elliott has had some excellent games. I mean, Carlton, the first day out, he was absolutely outstanding, probably best on that day. Has maybe fallen off a little bit, but I think he gives something different to our forward line, which I think we need to kind of strike that balance between kind of the bigger blokes and kind of the crummers. He's kind of that good, maybe leading up type forward. I think Medhurst has been the comparison all along, and I think it's a pretty valid one. So I mean, you'd probably say 3 or 4 of them will probably establish themselves come finals. I think Marley Williams is probably the other one that has maybe cemented his spot there as a small defender. He's looked very tough, kind of man-marking role that he's played, and I would see him as being a main part of our side come finals as well.
I guess if that's the one silver lining to all of our injuries this season, it's been the ability to show and test out so many new players. I mean, the team that we're going to have and the depth that we're going to have next year with a fully healthy list, touch wood, it's going to be incredible. And you can see the talent filtering through to the VFL level. So it's certainly quite bright, the future.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I reckon that brings us to the close of our evening. Who would have thought, in any circumstance, that a Greek, an Australian, an Irishman, and an Englishman could have had such a reasonable football discussion? I think that people would have called me mad had I suggested that at the start of the night. But, fellas, it's been an absolute pleasure having you all on, and thank you so much for taking time out, especially Will, overseas and taking time out of your day. I think it's still around midday there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So it's been fantastic to have you aboard. So thank you very much, Will, for joining us and giving up your time.
Thank you. It's been absolutely great.
Cory, thank you as always. Your contribution was magnificent.
No worries.
Colm, great hearing from you, mate. We'll see you around.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks a million.
And everybody, yes, I hope you've enjoyed this week's instalment of our podcast. Please keep tuning in. Please keep contributing. And I'll see you around on the forum. Good night.
Yep.
Hello and welcome to the BigFooty Podcast. I'm Blaze and I'll be doing a quick VFL review. Thanks for listening, everyone. To get things started, it was a pretty good game on the weekend between Collingwood and Box Hill. They kicked pretty inaccurately early, which kept us in the game, similar to the Port Melbourne game. And it was a great finish. The second quarter was a bit frustrating. We We kicked the ball pretty horribly, turned it over in the midfield, just couldn't get anywhere, couldn't get it out of defence, couldn't get it up forward. Yeah, I'll go through player by player, how I thought each player went. Firstly, Jordan Russell, I thought he was a bit disappointing for a senior player. He got about 22 possessions and only 1 tackle, and I just thought he didn't do enough for a senior player. He wasn't bad, but I thought for a player fighting for his career, he needed to do more. Next is Goldsack. He didn't really do much. He had a few good touches. He had an important mark late to try and win us the game. He didn't end up kicking the goal, but he got a handy point that ended up actually not really mattering. But yeah, he'll be good for the run and probably needs 1 or 2 more VFL games before he's considered for seniors. Marty Clark, I think he's just a VFL player. He was good. He got 33 disposals, but he had quite a few late ones after the game was almost over. He got a few chips and hand passes that boosted his position count to 33. But again, with Russell, I just don't think he did. I just don't think he had a great game, and I think he'll be a depth player for the rest of his career. And next up is Dane Beams, who most people went down to see. He started off pretty quietly, not too similar to Cracker the week before. He wasn't really noticed in the first quarter, did a few things, but as each quarter went on, he just got a lot better, and that culminated in an amazing fourth quarter performance. He got 2 match-winning goals. It was just brilliant, and hopefully he returns to the seniors next week. The next player along is Lockie Keefe, who I thought was one of the best on ground. He was continually beating his opponent. His foot disposal was actually elite. He very, very rarely made mistakes. His kicks were low and hard and straight to the chest, so I thought it was really good and wouldn't be surprised to see him in the AFL over the next few weeks. Tim Broomhead, it wasn't his best game, but it was still pretty good. He's showing he's pretty consistent. He got 23 disposals and 3 tackles. So yeah, I think he hasn't really come on in the last 2 weeks as what we'd hoped to see him push for a senior selection, but he's still showing good signs. I don't think he'll ever be the type of player who really takes the game by the scruff of the neck and just starts dominating, but he's a really consistent performer who kicks really well, finds space really well, runs hard, so I think we've got a good player in him. Next is Ben Richmond, he only really did one good thing all game, which was a great mark in the goal scorer and goal, but apart from that, he's just not doing that much. He's struggling around the ground, struggling up forward for the majority of it. So he'll need to improve next year to stay on the list. And next is number 31, Jackson Ramsey. Yeah, his second game back from an injury layoff, I thought he was really good. His foot disposal is quite good. It's low, hard, firm, fast, just gets to its target really quickly. He has great pace and he backs himself in, which is great to see. I think he'll be a really good player. It's just an amazing draft that we had. Even pick 38, I think he was, and he just looks like a real find. He's just got a lot of elite skills, backs himself, seems like a really good bloke as well. Next is Jackson Payne, who I've been a little down on lately. After his terrific start to the VFL season, he just hasn't really continued with that, gone backwards a little bit. His defensive efforts, well, they say he's working on them, but he only really got 2 tackles and didn't pressure that much, but he was okay there. He hasn't really had the scoreboard impact he did want to over the past few weeks. He got 2 goals early. One was a brilliant dribble from the pocket, but then he sort of really didn't impact the scoreboard after that, and I'm just a bit worried for him as he's a very one-dimensional player, and those type of players struggle in the AFL. Unless you're really excellent at your position, you sort of need to have a second spot you can go to for the coaches, and I just don't think he has that. So yeah, maybe trying him in defence, even though I think he'd be pretty bad there, just trying to add some more strings to his bow would be a good idea for Jackson. Next up is Brodie Grundy, who I think along with Beans was the highlight of the day. He was the number 1 ruckman, and yeah, apparently he rucked for 85% of the game, which I didn't really notice, but when he was in the ruck, he was just really, really good. He just has a great leap, out-muscles the opponent, got plenty of disposals around the ground. He got 13 contested possessions, which is excellent for a ruckman, and I think most of the fans on Big Footy would have seen his 2 goals, which were just amazing, one from 50 metres and the other roving his own ruckwork and snapping a great goal. So yeah, I think he was one of the big highlights from the day. This is his breakout game, and he'll be a sensational player over the next few years. Just needs to get his fitness up, and he'll be in the AFL. Don't you worry about that. Kyle Martin, he was good without dominating. I think we'd probably expect a little more from him after what we've seen from him in the VFL, but if you look at his stats, they were all pretty good. 27 possessions, 4 tackles, a few inside 50s, but it was below what we've come to expect from him in the VFL, where he just dominates, but he was still good. I think he'll stay in the VFL again for a few weeks, but probably be pushing for a return come around finals time if he keeps up good form. Yagmore is next. Someone I'm not a big fan on. I just don't see a lot to like in him. His foot disposal, while they keep telling us it's elite, he just screws up he's just way too inconsistent with his foot disposals for it to be called elite. Just screwing up, passing the back pocket, just missing targets, and the rest of his game, there's just not that much there. He's a very average athlete, and being a good athlete is incredibly important in the AFL at the moment. His marking is good without standing out. His disposal, his decision making is pretty ordinary, so I don't think there's that much to like about him, and I'll be surprised if he's on our list next year. Adam Oxley is the next one, someone you don't really notice, but he's been a bit down, in my opinion, the last few weeks since he's came back from the AFL, which is not that unnormal. You don't really notice him that much, but he did his role, I guess. 17 possessions. He wasn't amazing. I think he'll play the rest of the year out in the VFL and hopefully have a big 2014. Corey Galt was up forward, which is a bit different for him, but again, he's not someone I like at all. He just doesn't really give the team that much. He only got 7 possessions. I don't think he kicked a goal, maybe kicked 1 goal. Yeah, he just lacks footy smarts. He just lacks a lot of things. He doesn't have any outstanding attributes, in my opinion. And I think we're wasting a senior spot on him. I think at best we will kill him, and more likely we delist him. I just don't see a lot to like about him. He just doesn't really give us anything. Next up is Mooney. I thought Mooney was good, close to getting in the best for me. When we were struggling early to transition the ball from defence to attack, he was one of the ones who took the game on. Every time he took the mark, he looked to play on. He was one of the ones that when we struggled, he actually helped us a lot to get the ball down to the full line. And there was a really dirty moment when he took a mark on the wing. There was no one in front of him. He put on his trademark afterburners and was going to just blitz through for an amazing goal, and then a box-field player got this crappy, just touched his jumper as he bounced it, and the umpire caught it holding the ball. It was just the worst. It ruined was going to be such an exciting moment. So that was a low light. But yeah, he's a very exciting player. So yeah, that's all the senior players. I think my other notes is well done to Marley Williams, Ben Kennedy, Frosty the Snowman, Michael Hartley and Dwyer for coming down and checking out the VFL boys. They were standing pretty close to me, watching the game and supporting the boys. I thought that was well done. And also I saw Cloak and Cameron Wood onto the field after the game, which was pretty good. And Cloak was great with the kids. A lot of kids who he was just walking his dog, and a lot of kids went up to him, asked for a photo, and he was very accommodating, smiling. So yeah, well done to all those boys. To getting down with the fans and supporting their teammates. That was well done. And yeah, I thought the Box Hill fans, well, there weren't that many of them. I thought they were very well behaved, a lot better than the Port Melbourne fans. So all in all, it was a pretty good day. The biggest low light I thought was the Ferguson injury, which when it happened, it was a bit not sure what exactly happened. He was sort of tackled and his leg went under him, I guess, and yeah, he got stretched off in a lot of pain. He got carried off in a lot of pain. So yeah, after the game, I saw him on crutches with an ice pack on sort of his calf, Achilles area. So hopefully it's just a corky or a badly sprained ankle, but it looked pretty serious. So hopefully he's back soon, because he's been one of our best VFL players this year. So that's all from me. Thank you for listening to the Collingwood Podcast.
Hi there, this is Hot Pies with Sauce. This is the segment where we review the game coming up, which will be Collingwood versus the Adelaide Crows. Adelaide Crows are fresh off of a dramatic dying minutes loss to West Coast, while Collingwood, in contrast, are fresh off of quite a thrilling victory over their fierce rivals in Carlton by 41 points. For this segment, we've got a Adelaide Crows supporter from BigFooty called Specious Argument, and we've also joined with a Collingwood supporter from the BigFooty forum called Cory. How are you guys?
Good.
Doing well.
Great, that's good to hear. You're still doing very well after the game on Saturday. Specious?
I thought that was more of a general non-football related question.
Right.
I don't want to talk about that game ever again.
No.
It was the most unpleasant experience of the year so far.
That's understandable.
Even worse than the Hawthorn game, but never mind.
Yeah, it's always horrible to lose in the dying minutes, but you're kind of getting your own back from that dramatic come-from-behind victory over North Melbourne earlier in the season.
Yeah, we'll be paying for that one for a long time, I think, the karma from that one.
It was exciting stuff.
It was very dramatic, and it was a great 5 minutes of football. It was a terrible 2 hours leading up to it, and then a fantastic 5 minutes.
Okay, well, I'm going to get straight into some questions for you, Specious, and you just answer them how you like, as truthfully as you want to.
No worries. Hope I can live up to the stereotypical feral from across the border, and I'll do my best.
No worries. Well, the first sort of question I've got is about Brad Crouch, who he kind of came into this season with some big raps about him. A lot of the opposition supporters all thought that he would start playing straight away. Brandon Sanderson really sort of held off on Crouch for a couple of weeks before introducing him, and he's been in and out of the team over the season, sometimes through injury, sometimes through non-selection. A couple of weeks ago against Gold Coast, he had a brilliant game where he actually got the Rising Star nomination, and he's really starting to show why he had such a huge raps about him in the first place. How do the Crow supporters rate Brad Crouch, and has Sando ruined his chance at the Rising Star by not playing him as often as he should?
Look, I think the hype about him is warranted. I expect that over his career he's going to be a fantastic player. The thing you got to remember about him is he's only played 6 AFL games. He probably could have started playing last year, but was too young because we did recruit him in that mini draft. The Sanderson's policy of resting him has been quite controversial, particularly on the BigFooty board, the Crows board. Not having access to that inner sanctum, we can't really see what's going on week in and week out. There's talk about he's tired, he's pulling up sore after games. His hamstrings are not up to AFL level, and he's just having those sort of issues. Obviously, he has got the Rising Star nomination, which isn't easy to do. But I think this year Sando's plan is to try and ease him into AFL football in the hopes of prolonging his career and getting more out of him over the next sort of 10 to 15 years, rather than just making him play 22 games this year and having him burn out.
Now, with Kurt Tippett going last year to Sydney and Taylor Walker going down in unfortunate circumstances earlier this year, Tom Lynch has become a bit more important, maybe with Josh Jenkins not being able to dominate the forward line quite yet. And he kind of showed more than a glimpse, I'd say, with his performance against GWS with a massive sort of 10-goal haul. I'm interested in your thoughts on this. Is he a future star or one-hit wonder?
I don't think he's going to win a Coleman. I'll say that right off the bat. He shows glimpses of absolute brilliance, and you can see him doing Buddy Franklin-like sidesteps and dodging around players and kicking incredible goals like he did against GWS, and he got 10 in a row. But he'll then have a patch of 3 or 4 games where he's making shocking decisions. He's always in the wrong place. He's getting himself into trouble with those little sidesteps, and it's hard to see where he's going to develop into. At the moment he's been playing a bit of a third tall role, and so he's obviously not going to be a key target up there. With Jenkins is another infuriating one. He's as big as Tippett. He could mark as well as Tippett. He can kick better than Tippett, but he's so soft. He's like warm butter. And for a guy who's his size, who should be cleaning up blokes on the field, he's just not got that courage yet. And seeing that would be fantastic. But in regards to Lynch, I think what we saw is what he's capable of, but I don't see him maintaining that sort of standard.
I'm interested in hearing who you feel has improved for the Crows this year and who has gone backwards for the Crows.
Well, in terms of improvers, I had a long think about this one in preparation for this discussion, and to be honest, there haven't been many that you would say have improved really substantially. There's been a few breakout players like Sam Kerridge, number 29. Hopefully he'll get a game this weekend. He showed some brilliance against North Melbourne, really improved on last year, but then he's fallen away again. Richie Douglas has been a veteran for the Crows. He's been good, he's been bad, he's been good, he's been bad. The last few years he's been terrible. He falls all over himself. He making poor decisions. This year he's done really, really well. Mm-hmm. So he's actually one of the big improvers.
He only won your BNF not too long ago, didn't he? A couple of years ago.
He has won that. I couldn't tell off the top of my head exactly what year he won it, but he's one of those players that is frustrating, because if he could just play to his at least 75% of his capacity, he'd be great. Mm-hmm. But he just doesn't have that consistency of making the right decisions and getting in the right space the majority of the time. Mm-hmm. You never really know which one's going to turn up. But this year he has been actually quite consistent with his football, and he's done quite well. Other than that, you look at players like Rory Sloane, Dangerfield. They're really stars of the Crows. Mm-hmm. No surprises there. In terms of the least impressive players this year, that's a much longer list. Sean McKernan, probably off the top of my head, he's full of potential. He is another player that's soft as warm butter. In light of last week's events, I think he's trying to remedy that. He may have gone a bit too far.
Yeah, maybe
with that elbow. But I think if he gets a bit more attitude in his game, he could become a better player. He is. It's hard to tell whether he's a ruckman that can play forward or a forward who can ruck. He's certainly no Kurt Tippett, but I think, to me, he's better as a mobile ruckman, as long as he can toughen up a bit. Jason Paplesia, he's been one of our key small forwards, I should say, for a very long time, and he's always been able to kick a goal from anywhere inside the forward 50. He's been one of our most reliable goal kickers. This year, not so much. He's struggled with form. He's getting on in years. There's been a lot of talk that he's getting more games than he should this year, so we can justify delisting him at the end of the year, based on his performance. Sam Jacobs, another one I'd want to mention too. As you said before, tired, slow, looking a bit lazy. I don't know if he's got niggling injuries, what's going on, but we got so much out of him last year. I just hope we haven't spent him all up and aren't going to see that form again.
Maybe Scotty Thompson, just one that his age is finally sort of catching up to him. Just seems to have not quite got to exactly the sort of performance he was showing week in, week out last year.
That's right. Thompson, I mean, he's the wrong side of 30, and he's always been really tough at the football, and I think that sort of play's got to catch up with you. He still is one of our best performers fairly consistently, but again, once you get the wrong side of 30, there's not really much you can do about that.
Yeah, it is always a bit disappointing when sort of your favourite players just start to get a bit too old and reach their use-by date. But Scotty Thompson's definitely still got a lot to sort of add. And yeah, how do you feel? How important this Friday night is for the Crows season?
Well, as you say, I think in terms of developing for next year, I think every game is important because how you front up when you've got nothing to play for says a lot about the players. It says a lot about their work rate and their effort and their desire. If they're just going to drop their heads and not be interested, well, then 2014 is going to be shit. But if they're hungry, if they're still trying to learn, if they're still experimenting, if they're still going to play out quarters, then that's going to show very good signs for what's coming.
That's it. Now is really going to sort of show who's actually in it for the long haul, who really wants to sort of put their heads down, bum up, and actually get a good sort of cement their position in the team for next year.
Absolutely. Who wants that good contract or whatever it is.
Looking more into Friday night's game, from a Collingwood perspective, or who should from the Crows perspective, who should Collingwood look at that might be a bit more underrated? Like who should the Pies underestimate at their peril? That's what I'm trying to say.
Sure. You've obviously got the usual suspects: Dangerfield, Sloan, Thompson. Those guys are always going to, even on their bad days, they're still going to be better than 90% of the players in the AFL. But some of the lesser knowns that I think you might want to look out for: Sam Kerridge, I mentioned him before, number 29. Again, I hope he plays. He didn't play last week for had knee soreness or whatever that means. If he comes in, he had that brilliant game against North Melbourne. Got the Rising Star nomination. If he gets a sniff, he's very exciting to watch. Andy Odden, number 22. He's another one that I think you should keep an eye out for. When I believe it was when Walker went down, he went forward. He actually played out the game in the forward, looked great. He does play more as a shutdown defender. Had a fantastic game on the weekend, completely took Darling out of the match. So I think Andy Orton, number 22, Sam Kerridge, number 29, they'd be the lesser ones to have a look at.
For sure. I'll pass that on to Bucks next time I see him.
Let him know.
Cory, you've been very patient, and now's your turn to actually have a bit of a contribution. Specious Argument, I believe you've got a few questions that you'd like to ask a Collingwood fan.
I do. I'll try and get on the line to Sanderson after the call so we can sew stitches up on the weekend. But look, I had wanted to ask about Harry O'Brien and how this incident during the week is going to be affecting things. I'd heard rumours about getting Buckley in a chokehold, all sorts of things. Turn on the TV just before I come up to get on the call, and there it is: sexual abuse, witnessing murders, all sorts of things. So I don't really know what to make of it. I'm sure you guys have discussed it ad nauseum, but I'm just curious from a Crows perspective, how is that going to affect your playing group and the cohesion of the team?
I think with there's a lot of, with what's come in the past 24 hours, there's a lot of players in the team that are close to Harry. A lot of close friends. Well, everyone respects Harry at the club. I read before that he took someone like Seedsman under his wing, helped him improve this year, and, Harry has improved this year. I think with the past 24 hours, it'll be tough learning that he's had these issues, mentally, all this stuff, sexual abuse, depression. It's really hard. It'll be a bit hard hitting for a lot of these players. With whether it affects the group, playing games probably could. You don't really know what goes through their minds a lot. If they're going to think about it constantly, or how they're going to deal with it personally. It wouldn't get hard.
sorry, just as a bit of a follow-up question, have off-field issues affected Collingwood in the past, in the last year or two? Have any sort of major indiscretions affected the team's on-field performance? Is there anything that can give us hope?
I'd say probably one of the off-field ones was mainly Cloak last year. He even admitted himself that it affected his form, and what he saw last year did, he kicked 68 goals, and but he wasn't. He didn't perform well last year because it would have been affected him, like everything like that. I guess they had the J-Mac thing as well, where close friends had their mate die so close to finals, and the funeral before the I think it was the qualifying final. I'm not positive on that. And
do you think that got them to lift, or do you think that affected them in a negative way?
I think with the J-Mac thing going to lift a bit, we saw with the West Coast game, they got up in the final minutes, and I think they really emotionally won it for a really emotional win. We saw when they were kicking goals, they were pointing at their armbands, they were very emotional, like they were pretty spurred up that night. So with Harry, I think they might be in the back of their heads a bit, knowing that one of their mates are going through this, and I guess having him when he does get back on the field, they'll try and get around him, and I'm sure the crowd will get around Harry and just show how much support he has at this club.
So here I am hoping that it's going to be good for the Crows, and maybe not so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next.
Yeah, I think with Harry, that I think it might have been a bit more common knowledge within the actual club. Eddie came out today and said on radio that he had known about these sort of circumstances with Harry, but wasn't aware that he was actually going to bring it out public today. So I don't think it's going to be sort of resting on their minds as much as it might have if it had just been as if this had just come out of the blue.
Just like a glass of cold water over the head.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, that's I mean, it's good news for you guys, but never mind. All right. Next question I had was a bit to do with the rucks. Now, obviously, we mentioned McKernan's going to be out. Jacobs is going to have to carry it on his own. How do you think Hudson and this new guy Witts are going to go combating him?
Depends on, I guess, with Hudson. Was he's the first ruck last week, and you had Witts resting down forward and second rucking. It depends on if we don't know if he can get through, like if he's still sore after last week, old body. It's a bit like Joey, needs a lot of rest sometimes to get back into it. I guess because Sam Jacobs will be going up against Witts, as mentioned before, HotPies, he's only played 10 games, I think or so. He's a very inexperienced ruckman. I think Sam Jacobs wouldn't have a lot of trouble going against Witts. He's still learning, and but with Hudson's still, in my view, is really good, still in good form, still a good ruckman, very handy. I guess
he was bloody handy when he was at the Crows, I tell you that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I guess Sam, as you said, Sam could get into some form. This isn't our best ruck setup. We have an old guy and a new guy. I don't know if I'm not too sure if Lynch will come in or not. I think if they give Hudson a rest, Witts will be number one ruckman, and then Lynch will come in to second ruck. That might change things, but it wouldn't really fare it wouldn't fare that bad. Having Sam Jacobs, experienced ruck, hasn't been the best of form, but I wouldn't imagine he'd have a lot of trouble. If you can have someone second ruck, that will make it a bit easier.
Sounds good.
One advantage could be that maybe if Jacob starts to dominate, Hudson could just throw his walker at him, maybe trip him over.
Fair call. All right, now next question I had back on O'Brien. Who's been filling his spot? Who's going to fill his spot this weekend? And should we be concerned?
Well, last weekend we saw Young come in, replacing O'Brien. In my thought, Young's very much in our game plan as one of the wingmen of the team, along with O'Brien. So you have O'Brien and Young both on the wing, carrying the ball, bowling the ball down to the forwards. I think with Young coming in last week, it helped a bit replacing O'Brien because O'Brien hasn't been in the defence this year mainly. He's been in the midfield and having one of his best years. So Young would be the person that's replacing him, but I'm not sure if Young's still coming off an injury, so he's got to get back to form and he's got to get a bit more games under his belt. So I don't know whether he's going to be the sub or not. He might be a substitute or not. So I don't think you'd have to worry about Young. He's coming off the hamstring and the foot injury, so he's still property. He's not his usual self. So you wouldn't have to worry about him that much. He's just got to get back into the playing after an injury. So
fair enough.
Yeah, he's not ready to impact a game yet. He's still quite a few games off, I think, off his peak. But we'll still probably be able to add a few handy things to the game.
So that'll be a tick in the Crows column.
Yeah, maybe we can look at that. But he did have a marvellous tackle against Carlton on Friday night before he got subbed out. So, you might get one or two sort of spectacular things from him, but I don't think he's quite ready to dominate a game just yet.
Next question I had. Now this will test your loyalties a bit. Which out of contract Collingwood player should Adelaide be chasing at the end of the season, and why?
We're looking on the contracts of the players this year. There's two that's probably, I guess, could do well for you. That's I guess Nathan Brown and Dale Thomas. Now, Dale Thomas has been in the media a lot, whether he's going to stay or not. Numerous clubs interested in him, I'm sure. With Nathan Brown, I feel he's doing really good this year. He's sold in defence. When Reed has gone down, he's carried a lot of the load for the defence. He's pretty much the two of the key backs playing on the tall forwards. I think if you get someone like Brown, it really, help your defence when you come up against tall forwards. He sticks to his opponent. Like I watched the Melbourne game, he was very good on doors. He stuck to him all game. A few spoils. He's pretty solid defender. Coming off the injury, he's got back into himself. He's not afraid going into contests and that.
He's a big unit as well. 101 kilos and 195.
Yeah, that's why they call him Rambo. And I guess Dale Thomas. He hasn't been the same since 2011. The year that Ross Lyon said he was the best player in the league. And his ankle injuries just stopped any good form coming in. But we got a glimpse of his good form this year when we played against, I think it was St Kilda, when after the two he got down. So he's playing off half-back, getting the ball a lot. I think he got about 30 touches, I suppose, or so. So if he can get that ankle right, and a new club gets him, if he gets the ankle right, I think his best is superb. He can impact the game. He can win games for you. He's really fast. He's really good in the midfield, carrying the ball, kicking along down to the forward. So I think Dale Thomas is probably one you'd want to look for, but his ankle injury is really, really annoying. Stopping a lot of his good form.
What do you think the chances are? Assuming he leaves the Pies, what do you think your chances are of him playing out of Victoria next year? That's certainly a problem the Crows have had for a long time.
Yeah.
I love the city, but apparently AFL players don't for some reason.
One of the things with Daisy is, I think he's really, I've watched videos on him, on his life and on the club. They've had some of his trips going down to the country towns and that. Like, I think he comes from Jordan. I'm not too sure. Someone could correct me on that. He comes from a country town with his family lives down there, so he likes to visit them a lot. So I guess living in Victoria, it still allows him to, get back to his family, some of his friends, close friends down there. I don't see him moving interstate, but I guess if the money's right, I don't see him, he could, knock back an offer from us and move to either Queensland or, South Australia for bigger money.
That's one thing Tipper did for us is he freed up $800,000 in the salary cap.
Yeah.
Look, what you're saying as well about the country towns, I mean, that's one thing that Adelaide certainly does have plenty of. We've got a lot of small towns.
Yeah, that's the thing. He seems really, close to his friends, and I know he's got a lot of close friends at the club, but everyone's probably talked about this a lot this year, if he's going to stay or not. We don't know what's going through his head. We're going to have to wait and see if he's loyal or not.
But you think if we can get him, it'll be worth it?
Yeah, it should be worth it. If he can get that ankle right, he's one of the best players in our team. Always been one of the best, he can impact games, and he's just a really good player. Ian would love to have him.
Well, next question I had, is firing Matt Rendell the nicest thing that the Crows have ever done for you?
It probably has to be. We've got some South Australian players from the draft that I'm sure Matt Rendell knew prior to the draft. At his time in Adelaide, he would have spent a lot of time researching players in the sample. I guess other clubs and those kind of things. So we got. I guess if it wasn't for Rendell, we wouldn't have had players like Grundy, Kennedy, and Broomhead, South Australian players. They're primed to be some great players at our club. We look at Grundy; he's primed to be our second ruckman, and he's already showing promising signs in the VFL. Along with Kennedy, he's been in the seniors, playing in the midfield. He's shown really good signs. He's a really hard working player, and we have Broomhead in the VFL as well. That's impacting, I guess, and I'm sure he'll debut again this year. So I guess it was a good coup getting him, and I guess it was a good.
Welcome.
No worries. We're lucky to have him.
All right, last question I had. Which Crows player would you most like to have wearing the black and white prison bars next year, and why?
There's two real standout players for me. It'd probably be everyone's going to go for this, like Patrick Dangerfield. I'm sure
Hands
everyone
off, can't have him.
Everyone would love someone like Dangerfield adding spice to our midfield, or even Taylor Walker. I know Kurt Tippett's gone. It would be pretty harsh taking your other key forward. But I guess Walker wouldn't be too bad standing alongside Cloak and Lynch as three tall forward line. But
that would be very mean to other teams. Can you imagine having to line up against that forward line?
Yeah, I would. I'd love to have Taylor Walker play for Collingwood, but I think he bleeds red, blue, and yellow for sure.
He's one of those players I think would play for $10 a week if he had to, just to play at the Crows.
He does seem like that sort of bloke.
Yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say he's that much of a bogan. I don't think he'd fit in Melbourne very well.
Sorry.
Well, Marich is doing quite well there with his mullet, so maybe Walker could just fit in right there.
They could be neighbours.
That's it.
Yes, I think they're like. I think Walker couldn't do could do that any better than what Lynch is doing and has been doing for the past few weeks. But yeah, it'd be pretty mean taking another forward out.
I was just going to say with Walker, it'd be nice. It's actually a bit refreshing. Or at least with Tippett, it's refreshing losing a forward because we lost. We lost Bock, and then we lost Davis, and who else we lose? There's another key defender we lost. So we kept having our centre half backs poached, and we had to try and rebuild around that. And thank God for Daniel Talia. He's come out he sort of came out of nowhere as a rising star last year. And it's nice to finally start losing other key position players instead of just the backs.
Yeah, it's never good losing players at all. I mean, we lost, Dawes, and we've seen how good Dawes has been this year, and Wellingham, who's added a lot to the West Coast midfield. Yeah.
It really stings, doesn't it, when you see a player that's doing better at the new club than they did at yours? Yeah. That really hurts.
Yeah. Especially Dawes. I mean, it did nothing in last year, but he's the key forward in Melbourne now and taking a lot of load off Mitch Clark. So
then again, my grandmother probably could have get a game at Melbourne this year, so
maybe you should send her details in.
I'll let the recruiting staff know.
Okay. Well, this has been a great podcast. Went a little bit over what I thought it actually would go, but I'd like to thank you both for your contributions. You've been brilliant. Couldn't have asked for any more. And Specious Argument, I'd love to wish you luck for Friday night, but unfortunately I can't do that. I just hope that it's going to be a really good game and we just get back over you right at the end, just like last week.
I'm not feeling good going into this game, but that just makes it all the sweeter when we win.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, welcome to TradeDraft segment for round 16 versus the Crows. The topic I am doing today is how Dale Tapping has improved our VFL side and his history leading up to it. He came to us after winning the 2011 TAC Cup flag with the Sandringham Dragons, which was a great job for him to do. Then we signed him as an assistant coach, and we put him as an assistant coach of the VFL side, which you could not really see from that position what he was doing, but with the poor season we had, because we finished second last with 2 or 3 wins, which was really not good enough. Lockyer was he replaced Lockyer, who was head coach for that season, and the season before that, which Lockyer has had next to no success in the VFL. But when Tapping was put in charge, the change has been drastic from coming from just easy beats of the competition till potentially one of the best sides in the comp. Just have to see, we've only lost to... Our worst loss was probably against Werribee and Frankston early in the season. That was at Werribee and at Victoria Park. We've lost to Williamstown by... our worst loss was against Casey when we lost by 90 points, which was just not what we've been doing all year. So it was just something out of the blue. But I thought he'd going to win with that. And our other loss was to Williamstown, which was only about one kick in it. And we could have even tied that game if we had a bit of luck. But the rest of the games we've beaten some really good sides in Geelong, Box Hill, Essendon, Geelong, Port Melbourne, and there's a few that could have been very well. But you say, what's the future of Tapping for the rest of after this season? Because there is a reasonable chance that we could still win the 2013 VFL Premiership, which would be what we all love to see. Well, I could see him possibly staying at the club, stay as VFL coach for a few more years, or as been said on the board, he might even want to go somewhere else and move up the ladder, or he might even be moved up the ladder at Collingwood. But I have said if Buckley ever leaves the club, Tapping could be a very good choice to be the head coach, because you have to see what he's done with the Sandy Dragons and our VFL side and how capable he is. Well, that's it for this segment, so I'll be back next week with a brand new segment. Bye.